I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and all I can say right now is the sun is out and there are no tornado watchings in Atlanta. I'm good.
Well, I am glad. so glad. And here, the sun is out, but we never had any tornado warnings or watches. So, status quo.
And that's all we can really ask for. So, thank you for joining us for another CRM Players. This is going to be like an old school, back in the day kind of, because it's just going to be you and I kicking it for the most part.
Back when we were radio pioneers.
When was that again?
1938.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Did we ever win? What was that? The Sarconi Award or whatever that thing was.
Marconi Award. That's right. Yes, we did for our for the episode we did with the Green Hornet.
Or is that the missing episode with David Alston from Radiant 6 at the time?
The most famous episode of all time.
Yeah, the one that nobody will ever see.
That's right. Well, they couldn't have seen that one anyway.
Well,
they could have heard it though.
That's true too. Anyway, yeah, this is going to be fun because there's a lot of stuff that's going on. I was just looking at, I've got, I believe, 6 or 7 of the latest earnings reports. So we can talk a little bit about that. There's been a whole bunch of events, virtual events that's taking place in the industry. But before we can do anything and talk about any of that stuff, there he is.
That's right. The man who opens for us.
Yes. We do not consider it a show unless Finn starts us off.
That's right. So Kia Ora to you too, whatever that means.
Is that a kind of car?
That's right. It's a gold Kia. Right.
All right. As usual, Finn, you have to tell us what the language of origin was for that grading, and we'll be on the lookout for that. But by the way, speaking of which, we ought to give congratulate Sven, officially congratulate him for his new position over at SAP. So he's joined Esteban and Buffalo Bob and our buddy Margot and a whole bunch of other people that we like. The notorious JV Z, as I like to call her. Jen Van
That's right.
Yeah, so congratulations, Finn. We are excited for you. That's Maori. That's the language.
Maori. Yeah, I looked it up actually.
I thought it was like a weird way of spelling somebody named Mary. Yeah.
We're very happy for you, Sven. It's a good day for you and good day for SAP too.
Well,
lucky to get you.
Look who he's mentioning. Ratul and Daniel. See, this is how we know Sven is really in sync with what's going on at SAP and with us. Because you know what Sven did? He didn't know that I was going to talk about this, but he mentioned. See, Sven is just going all in. See, I didn't even get a chance to do this because Sven is all right. But we're going to talk about that in a minute, Sven. So keep your hat on. We are going to talk about that. Let's say hello to Andy.
Andy, this is literally the youngest looking senior executive in the entire industry. He looks like he's 14, and yet he's a serious senior executive at Creatio. He's amazing.
That's right. I think this is the first time he's actually given us a shout out for the show. So welcome. Yeah. Thank you for the shout out. We love seeing you there. And actually, I got a Creatio story too. That's something I'm going to be doing as part of what they're doing. But we'll get into that in a bit. Oh, all right. So I guess Sven is like forcing my hand, man. Since Daniel
might as well.
I might as well. All right. So in honor of Sven joining SAP and basically telepathing what I was going to talk about, we'll just move it up in the order here. So let me pop up the little image I have to go along with this conversation. So, all right. So I posted on LinkedIn that, back in my heyday at college, when I was getting my accounting degree at the University of Delaware and my master's in business administration from Widener University, if somebody would have told me like almost 30 years into the future that I would be, let's say the first thing would be DJing an analyst event, I would have said, what are you smoking? There's no way that's going to happen. But then,
and what's an analyst event?
Yeah, well, first of all, what's an analyst? Because I didn't know what an analyst was back then. But so on all accounts, I would have said you're crazy. But that happened. Actually, happened a couple of times last year. First was Salesforce with me and Ray DJ.
That's right.
A little back and forth there, and then again at the end of the year, or was that the beginning of this year? Was Zoho?
This year.
That was just this year. How could I forget because of the dancing analysts? Who was the dude doing the hula? I can't remember.
I don't want to embarrass him again.
All right, so I was already thrown off of that would have never come up 30 years. But then also this week, I was asked to host. Get this. A hot wings eating contest based around CDP.
What the hell is that?
And so here it is, folks. Here is the promotion for the CDP, and this is for SAP, the CDP Hot Wings Challenge. And so I get to host this, and I'm hosting it with Ratul Shah, who I've been able to do a couple of really cool things with in the past. Really great guy. Love his sense of humor. Also love his expertise and how he presents it. And now, and this is queuing up Sven here, because I've never met Dan Tranter before, but I'm looking forward to the meeting him next week for the Hot Wings Challenge. So Dan, apparently he's the vice president of SAP Customer Data Solutions, and apparently Daniel is responsible for our buddy Sven being at SAP. So I automatically have to like him just because of that. I
could swear I know Daniel. I know when we were talking earlier, you said he was from Giga, and I think I used to meet with Patrick Salyer, who's the former head of CEO and founder of Giga, at conferences all the time, and I would informally be there. I was kind of their informal advisor for years, really, probably for almost 6-7 years, and they always had one or two people with them. And I want to say that Dan was one of the people at least some of those meetings because he looks so familiar. And Ratul, we both know for a while now, who's great. He's just a great guy.
Man, and if Ratul or Dan, if you're out there listening right now, we will bring you on. If you're going to do a Hot Wings Challenge, there needs to be some good smack talk. And, if either one of you are out there listening, Ratul, I know Ratul has a little game because I've had a chance to interact with him. So it would be cool if one or both of you came on. If you're listening, if you can hear us, we would love to hear you come on, have you come on and talk a little smack about, I don't know if there's some rules that we have to establish for the CDP Hot Wing eating contest. Because I'm sure there's probably never, ever been a CDP Hot Wings eating contest before.
I can't even imagine what's going to happen, to be honest. It's beyond me. Sven can't account for everybody else. We're just going to roll, and for all we know, Andy's here, but beyond that, you two may be the only two. We don't know. We have mystery people who don't.
We threw it out there.
Chat. Whoever's out is out. Whoever's here is here.
And like I said, man, Ratul or Dan, let us know, man. We'll bring you right in. I have no idea what to expect from this, but I'm looking forward to it. Should be fun. All right. So what are we going to talk about first? Because there's a lot of stuff going on. I've got
start with the reports. See what we got.
Some recording. All right. You know what? Before we do that, can we do a kind of a serious shout out to some of our folks over in our friends at companies like Zoho and Freshworks? They're really going through some tough times over there in India.
Yeah.
Lots of people that work there are directly affected, either themselves or their friends or their family members. And we just want to shout out and say we're thinking about you guys over there, and I, there's not a whole lot that we can do, but just let you know that, our thoughts and prayers are with you. So,
yeah, we know that many of you have even lost loved ones, and we're certainly there if you need us. For those of you who do know us, there's a shoulder here if you need it, right? And if you don't know us, but you want to, please reach out. And the other thing we would like to offer is we would like to offer get well soon wishes to our buddy Brian Halligan from HubSpot. He was in an accident the other day and is taking a temporary leave from HubSpot in order to recover from the accident. Sounds like he's okay, but it was serious enough for that to happen. So we just wish him not only a speedy recovery, but get himself back to work, because he's like the center of that whole company, him and Dharmesh, right? So, he's a good guy.
Yeah, and I think that must have happened in March or something, but I didn't find out about it until I was reading the transcript from their recent earnings call, and I saw Dharmesh's name up there. And I'm like, wait a minute, Dharmesh? That's usually Brian was on that. So I read Dharmesh's opening statement, and it said, "Hey, you first and foremost, we just want to let everybody know that Brian was injured. He's taking time to get to heal. He's expected to make a full recovery, and so that was great to hear. But I was like, wow,
yeah,
sorry to hear that he got was injured, but it sounds like he's on his way back. But since we talked about HubSpot, that's one of the earnings reports that came up, and I thought I wanted to take a walk through their earnings report, because their earnings report is like different than the ones that I typically see. That's because they actually kind of tell a story of the company before they get into the financials, or maybe it's the way that they approach telling the financials that is different. It just feels like they're storytellers over there. So I'm gonna pop this open. Now we're not gonna go through every slide, but
no,
we're not doing that. Oops, wait a minute, got the wrong thing in there. Got this guy.
Wow, what Hayden Stafford leaves Pega and goes to HubSpot.
Yeah, we don't want to start any rumors or anything. but so let's see. Let's walk with HubSpot's mission. All right, what does it mean to grow better? So this is now, you don't typically see this kind of build up in these earnings presentations that they do for the financial guys. So they kind of walk through this more than a kind of cement in it's a key strategy. So word of mouth, we always think of them as that anyway. And that their whole the whole HubSpot story started off with them creating content that people found and gravitated towards, and so it's always been this word of mouth kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing: I get through the growth acceleration thing, transformed our business around a new model of growth. So they keep telling the story. Each time we do friction from our customers to our flywheel. Now this is interesting. So they started out as a marketing platform, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel like it's been that long ago, but I guess it's been a pretty significant amount of before time. But look at all the other things they've added since the marketing, and then this is really interesting. So this is so easy to follow, and there's kind of their story before they even get to the numbers. So now they lay out the different pieces to their platform, and they lay out pretty easy to see the target audiences for each of the components. Very straightforward, very easy to follow. Their pricing strategy. A lot of times you don't see the pricing strategy in these things. But once again, very easy to follow, very easy to see. I mean, and the prices, have grown significantly. But
yeah,
I mean, look at that marketing hub, and that's when it all started with the marketing stuff.
So what is when it says 3,200 plus? What's that? A baseline price for what?
For the marketing, the full
No, I know
marketing,
it's for the
high level.
enterprise. I don't know what that. I assume they have somewhere where they talk about what that entails. I will say one thing. I mean, I really like what I'm seeing here, and I'm amazed. I see they're charging for their sales hub now, which is actually interesting, and they have a service hub, which is also interesting. Meaning
And the
they've
new one
gone
is the
all in.
operations hub. That one's new.
And well, they've gone all in on CRM as what it is, right? Which is operational, right? And but what's fascinating, I will say, there's a slight amount of disingenuous. You actually said it right. Remember, they said we transformed from an app to a platform. That's a story, but the reality is, to your exact point, they were a marketing platform. They weren't just an app, right? From the beginning, they've always been a platform. So, it's a little bit of marketing, let's just say.
So here's the pathway to it.
Yeah, but they didn't go from a pathway as an app to a platform. They went from a platform, which they built an app on, built multiple suites on, and expanded the platform.
That's it's like a single purpose platform or single purpose thing to a multi-purpose thing.
Exactly.
Platform. Yeah. The marketing stuff gets in there.
You got to do what you got to do.
This is pretty interesting too. Being able to see. So they lay out the story, which is good, and then they kind of hit you with the big milestones and the annual recurring revenue trajectory as they add on the milestone. Very visual, very easy to see what's going on with this thing, and I just found this such a refreshing way to build out an earnings presentation that I haven't really seen done for a lot of these companies.
So what's their earnings now?
It's funny you should ask. Well, remember they I think the same week that Pega announced that they had hit the $1 billion annual run rate, HubSpot announced it too. So we know that they're over $1 billion. So it looks like the last quarter. And once again, look at that growth line. I mean, their growth actually accelerated from 2019 to 2020 and into 2021. So they're closing in on 300 million a quarter, which is closing in on 1.2 billion for the year.
Well, the thing I've noticed and it's been really interesting when it comes to them is that, look, they had a period where, when they became kind of like a sexy name in marketing, and the thing about them is they proved their point over and over again by the volume of activity that would go on around HubSpot itself. They proved that what they were promoting at the time was the way you should be thinking about marketing. But, it got to a point where I think I felt at least that they had been drinking a little too much of their own Kool-Aid, and they kind of faded back. And then they put forward their sales hub thing or sales CRM, which is, basically lightweight in the beginning. Now seems to be relatively full featured. And then now, though, if I'm looking at them, I'm genuinely impressed with how not only their expansion, but they seem to have a real commitment to going at the market, the CRM market, which is already full bore. I mean, like really full bore. They built out the functionality that they have. I mean, look, if someone mentions HubSpot, they still have some identity things to deal with. Like, if somebody mentions HubSpot, very few people think CRM; they think marketing, right? And they're still going to have to overcome that. But I think they've actually built out the technological offering and the platform extensions that they need to really compete in the entirety of the market. The question I'm curious about is, who they're going to be aiming at in the next, because historically they've done very well in the small business to mid-market, and going at the enterprise is going to be interesting for them.
Well, as you can see, there are 114,000 customers. And you saw the international reach. They've done a really good job, man. I mean,
they have.
Overall, you remember there were a couple of companies that we were tracking at the very same time. I don't really want to call out the other one. But just say that they haven't grown nearly as well as what HubSpot has done.
Yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about.
yeah. I just don't feel like calling them out right now, but it's jarring, the difference in trajectory that both these companies are roughly the same amount of time. One chose one direction, HubSpot chose their direction, and it's unbelievably different how far they've grown differently.
Yeah, look, I mean, as little as a free marketer as I am, which is very little, the market nonetheless spoke, in a manner of speaking.
Yeah. All right, so that's HubSpot. I mean, you can't fault looking at that earnings report. They're hitting on all cylinders. So you gotta give it up to Brian and Dharmesh and their whole team over there.
Yep.
And let's see. I want to see. I think the biggest challenge for them, like you said, is everybody knows them from marketing, content and marketing, CRM, proper CRM. I mean, like the traditional CRM. Not yet. We'll see what happens. I think that's a big opportunity for them because we all know the CRM space is growing and it's still the biggest enterprise software spend right now. So there's a lot of opportunity. But do you think being so aligned and thought of just purely as marketing and content marketing, really, do you see that as a hindrance to them making the step to being viewed as a full service CRM?
I think they're got a lot of work to do, but it's doable. I mean, it takes a while. Look, Pega, think of Pega. I mean, Pega back in 7 years ago, people saw it as BPM. Now they're an engagement platform, and they didn't miss a beat in those 6 years in terms of turning their story, right? Their corporate narrative evolved exactly on target. I think what HubSpot's challenge is going to be is to develop a corporate narrative that explains how they went from marketing to that full service, highly operational full service CRM, platform. And it's going to take. It's not going to look. Let's say this. I think they're on an amazing trajectory. I'm very happy for them. They're a good company, and Dharmesh and Brian are great people. But it's going to take them a couple of years, really. I think, or potentially even more, to get there. And that's with kind of a full bore, we are what we are this now kind of campaign.
Oh, look who's talking about our buddy.
Yeah, you know what? He wasn't even on the show. No, what happened was he wasn't even on the show. When I said corporate narrative, he smelled it from New Jersey, and then said, "I need to get on the Playaz now."
Like he smells those blueberry bagels.
Oh yeah, then he'd be in the bathroom ready to throw up.
So there's a good question from James, a happy hour veteran. Could HubSpot's play be around startup company that transition to enterprise because their full solution capability? Yeah, that's what they're targeting. I think they call high growth or scaling businesses or something like. There's a tagline in the way that they say this is one I don't agree with. The number one CRM company for scaling companies or something like that. They always try, how companies always try to say number one, and then it's some kind of like designation that only they are making. It's not like the market isn't saying it's, we're going after this slice of the segment and we're number one at that. They all do it.
I gotta say, that's a smart way of putting it, though.
It is.
One of the things that has always been a super nebulous area are companies that are kind of in the upper end of the mid-market that are transitioning into enterprise, right? Because things change, more dramatically than any other place in transition. That transition is the most traumatic, really. You're going from I'm picking a number out of a hat here, but going from a $800 million or $600 million company, let's say, to $2 billion, right? And you have the gigantic, surge. But things get more complex, regulatorily, they get more complex from the standpoint of process. They get more complex from the kind of hires you're making. They get more complex from the way you sell. They get more complex from all the different factors. And I think They're basically saying if you're scaling up, and that could be, if you're picking it at every level of the spectrum, if you're picking it from small business to mid-size or mid-size to enterprise, it's actually a really smart place to put yourself, because that's a place where an enormous amount of help in transition is needed. And most companies don't position themselves as in the in-between. They tend to position themselves in the category enterprise, mid-market, small business. And you know as well as I do, the range in those areas is enormous. Enterprise has got the least range probably, but in the mid-market, the range is enormous. The small business end is enormous or is big. And so putting yourself in kind of where you're scaling, where you're starting to go up, and then because it's the word scaling, you could be in the middle too. It's actually it's a pretty smart campaign.
It is, but who originally used that designation, they wanted to be the leader in attracting high growth companies for CRM. Salesforce Essentials. They did that same thing like 3 or 4, maybe longer years ago. Remember when Salesforce Essentials first kind of came about? They were positioning to get those high growth small businesses.
Yeah.
And I think that's what HubSpot basically is saying with what, the way that they're positioning. Now they want to go after that. Does that mean that they're going to, start clash of the titans, so to speak? Salesforce Essentials, which is really, that's just a portion of the overall target base for Salesforce. But it seems like that's going to be the focus for HubSpot for traditional CRM, targeting high growth, not necessarily just small companies, but probably mid-market high growth companies. You think that would probably be their sweet spot for that?
Yeah, I do. I think again, they give themselves lots of leeway in their statement, but I think they're going to go higher, bigger, I guess, than smaller, right? Because it makes sense for them to go there.
Right. So we have an update to the CDP Hot Wings story here. It looks like, so I posted this on LinkedIn a little earlier. And so Ratul answered the post. I'm really warming up to this event. Do you think we can get Esteban Kolsky to crash the fun?
Doesn't it sound funny that he's asking you?
Have you ever seen Esteban eating hot wings? I can't recall.
No. In fact, you know what I'm doing? I'm texting him right now to ask him.
We want answers live on the air. So Ratul, once again, we are putting the call out. If you can join us, let us know. We'll shoot you the link and we'll bring you on. Same offer goes to Dan. I don't know Dan, but I'm looking forward to meeting him and watching him, try to take you out with some hot wings there, Ratul. But the ultimate would be, yes, if we can get the one and only Esteban Kolsky to be a part of this.
Well,
wow.
The message is out. I'll wait to get an answer.
Oh, we're standing by. We're waiting to hear from any of these folks. Sven, you're officially with SAP, so how are your hot wing eating skills, Sven? So
I see Sahil is here too. Huh.
Yeah, I saw that. Wait a minute.
Right.
I see a LinkedIn user.
Guess who it is? It's got to be him.
Yeah, hot is relative. Well, that's true. That's true.
Uncle Hot.
All right. So look. So you want me to show the next presentation up? We'll take So here's another one of these that just recently came out. And once again, this is a hot guy. These are ServiceNow, man. They're on a roll.
Man, years long roll and getting better every day, man. It's like, I will tell you something. Sorry, SAP, but the best move that ServiceNow made was to bring Bill McDermott over there. He is doing an amazing job with that company, and they've got guys like Nick Sitzen at CSO, and of course, he's been on our show a couple of times. And their customer workflow team is just kicking it, and their customer base is enormous. And the other thing that they're doing exceptionally well, and I have to give them tons of credit, is they're thinking through these seemingly unusual but not really partnerships. They're really expanding at a level that's unbelievable when it comes to partners. Now think about it. They've gone to companies on the one hand, like they have a partnership with Adobe, they have a partnership with Microsoft, they have a partnership with AT&T, they have a partner. I mean, I can keep going, but you get the point. They have these enormous group of partnerships, each of which has a very explicit purpose and is but is strategic in nature and provides scale at the same time, and they're well thought out. Like you would think, and I was talking to them about, was actually talking to Adobe and ServiceNow about the Adobe ServiceNow partnership. And because if you think about it, on the surface of it, it doesn't sound all that sensible, really. I mean, it sounds like here's this company focused on customer service operations, partnering with a company that's focused primarily on marketing, really, and creative activity. And so I said, why? And they said, one, from ServiceNow's standpoint, which is the one I'll address, is they see this as an amazing way to get an enormous amount of data that will help them on individual customers, and help them figure out how to let's say, how to make ServiceNow work better on behalf of individual customers by getting data access, as part of the offering in this partnership with Adobe. And Adobe, of course, is almost obvious. It gives Adobe, goes to kind of HubSpot's approach to one degree. It gets Adobe into the customer service space, which they're not in. And so, both of them see this as a big win-win, and it's a very, very tight partnership. Not like Adobe, Microsoft, but nonetheless a strong, strong partnership. And they have been just kicking it on this one.
Yeah. All right. So we were completely wrong about who LinkedIn user was.
Who is it?
Guess who was saying hot is relative? I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you right now. This was not Esteban, so we did not see an Esteban sighting, but we do see.
Oh, wow.
An Alexa sighting.
Oh, I'm in a room where there is none. Oh, there is one, and it's just set it off.
Please say that again.
There it is.
There you go. Hey, A, and you're right. Hot is relative.
And she was also, you got to get your settings, your security settings straight there, Alexa, because you're typing some good stuff up here. Oh, look, she's actually quoting you. So I just saw that, quoting you. All right.
Huh. What a smart guy said that. I agree. You know what? I actually agree with whoever the hell he is.
Yeah, I agree with PG.
Yeah, me too.
It's a good thing you do. Because what if you didn't? How would that go?
That would be frightening.
Let me see. Let's go. Let's look at the. So here's what we're talking about in terms of their growth. Look at that.
Those numbers are off the charts.
So they're doing, whereas, and you're pointing out this not to, compare and really compare, but HubSpot, they're about on a $1.2 billion annual run rate. You look at what's going on with ServiceNow, they're doing that a quarter. So these guys are, they're closing in, they're over $5 billion annual run rate.
I'll tell you, the thing with these guys, they got a couple of things that also just make them always stand out. First of all, when ITSM came around, they nailed that market. It's not my market, so I don't know the details, but they nailed it. And then they made a really intelligent decision to go focus on customer service, recognizing that this was going to be a dramatic change for them, but an extremely important area. Then the other thing they've done over time, while all this is going on, is they built out this insanely great customer success organization that does it just right. 24/7 access, no revenue objectives for the organization, just metrics that say the customer wants to continue to work with us. Third, the other thing they've done is that when the market makes a shift, or when things occur that are opportunistically there, they take advantage of it. They don't just watch them. They realign. They're very quick to do the kind of alignment they have to do. I don't want to. They're not like visionary, say in the sense of Pega or Salesforce or something like that. But they are future thinking, meaning they are able to look ahead enough to build out the kind of strategies that they're going to need as time evolves to continue to execute at a very high level. The best example of that's around customer experience, really, and customer engagement. When Disney became their customer and they proved ServiceNow proved the value of service ops being successful in terms of how it impacted successful service ops in crisis being very important to a customer experience. Once they did that, they were all in. And, they got the Disney guy on stage, although I actually thought they should have gotten Baby Yoda. But they got they got the Disney CTO on stage, and he called them, which really was striking, their partner, right? And then the other thing they've done, which I think is related to that, which was invaluable, is they've spent a ton of time starting to put forward as on a thought leadership level, which is really striking given what they do, the discussions around empathy, right? An enormous amount of body of work on empathy. I mean, look, I'll tell you, they've been a client of mine for a while, and I've done both advisory and thought leadership stuff with them. Thought leadership stuff I did last year. I did 3 different events, a keynote speech at Contact Center World, a webinar, and an article for their magazine. And here's what the first one was on: empathy. The second one was on empathy. The third one was on empathy, right? I had 3, they're really pushing it and think about it. Kind of like Pega, they were an operationally focused company that moved to the right brain, so to speak. And they're understanding the power and the impact of what they do on customer experience and what it calls for in a crisis too. So, I mean, these numbers don't surprise me in the slightest.
Well, you can see, you're looking at the full year guidance, 5.4 billion at the high end.
God bless them, man.
That is because 5-6 years ago, nobody really saw them getting to this point at this so soon. I mean, I think they caught a lot of people, by surprise. They're making a legitimate play for Big 6 and not just Big 5 at this point.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I you know what? I literally have confidence that they'll get there. I think they're in a brilliant mode right now, and there's nothing that showed me it's slowing up in the slightest.
No, and I'll go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I'll say it after.
I was just going to say I wanted to put up this one because they have been talking about workflow and workflow automation, and commercials. You're seeing ServiceNow do commercials, and workflow and workflow automation are at the heart of it. They've done probably the best job in terms of evangelizing that term in the way that it's being used currently than probably anybody else. Everybody else is talking about workflow and workflow automation now, but these guys, I think, they've led with it over the last 4 or 5 years, and you can see the benefit of it because they've got mind share when it comes to this stuff now.
Yeah, they do. Well, it's the other thing, which is just an anecdotal trend that I've noticed. So, both you, me, and others, who are friends of the industry, so to speak, get a lot of calls from people on, hey, I'm thinking of moving on. I'd like to go work somewhere else. You guys, you, meaning you, me, whoever, know a lot of people, could you help? Now, what you often get in those kind of calls is, I'd really like to work for blank, right? And then they name a company. And over history, if you look at it over, let's say, the arc of the last 5 years, it's pretty much been Salesforce is number one, always, right?
Yeah.
I'm starting to hear a lot of, I'd like to work for ServiceNow now. Like a lot. Like enough to be, again, it's not scientific, but enough to be noticeable to me, right? Enough to be noticeable to me to say that it's starting to compete with Salesforce as a place to work, that people really want to work if they hear so many good things about it.
It's, it's kind of like the hot company in a lot of ways, because it, like I said, they kind of came out, not nowhere. They were a bit, of course, big ITSM, but the crossover into the broader kind of CRM industry, so to speak, and the other aspects of it. Like you said, Pega has done that. These guys have done it. You see a company like Creatio starting to do that as well. And you notice a lot of these companies are coming from a process management, BPM kind of foundation and making the crossover into customer engagement. And it makes a lot of sense because you need a lot of automation, you need a lot of workflow, you need a lot of process automation and intelligence in order to really, stay connected with customers and create the kind of experiences they're looking for. So you to see these companies, see a Pega, to see a ServiceNow, to see a Creatio coming in and really getting significant, pieces of the pie. It's more than a trend at this point.
Yeah, I think to your point, there will be a big six, and they will be there.
You want to answer Sven there?
Yeah, Sven, don't worry. Sven, you have to remember one thing: the people who are leaving CRM Playaz to go to companies, not only are they not an original CRM player, but their average age is probably 40. Not only am I an original CRM player, I'm 71. Okay, so I have no intention of going to work for anybody but the one I'm already working for, which is me, and then there's the players, and that's it. By the way, I got an answer from Esteban, but it requires me to ask him if it's okay to read it aloud. Believe me, right? So
okay.
I asked him if it was okay, and we'll see.
Just popping up some comments here. Workflows cross silos. Workflows are made for crossing silos if it's done right. Because if it's not done right, let me see, Andy. Yeah, you can't have excellent customer experience. Yeah, it's pretty obvious that companies that have that foundation are making significant inroads into, and I think not only making significant inroads, but having a significant influence on the direction of the industry as a whole by bringing in that process automation, that workflow automation component that in a lot of instances just was kind of overlooked when you think about it for a traditional CRM perspective.
Absolutely agree.
What is Finn talking about? YG and for your wife?
I'm not exactly sure what that meant. I was trying to figure that one out.
Oh, I think. Oh, good Lord, Finn.
Oh, my other boss.
Yeah, you got to put that one in right after the first comment about you leave the place. Put those two together, and I think that's where. Interesting. All right, here we go. LinkedIn user, which I believe is Alexa. Alexa, change your security settings. We need to see you, and not LinkedIn user. You get us all confused like that. It doesn't take a whole lot to confuse us. All right, you want to do one more?
Yeah.
All right, let's look at Microsoft. Now, the scale of the numbers are definitely going to change with this one. So we kind of went from big, bigger, and now we're stepping up from the biggest here with this one. So here's the recent quarterly earnings from Microsoft. This is their Q3. That's really interesting. Oh, all right, there you go. Yeah, he's doing that. He's definitely doing that, Sven.
Okay, got it.
All right, so look at the scale of the numbers that we're talking about for Microsoft.
Oh gosh,
billions. We're billions.
No, but the revenue number is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's just for the quarter.
I know.
41 total revenue, 41.7 billion, and that's when you're already at that level and you're still growing 20% roughly. That's incredible. And then look at the breakdown. So is the intelligent cloud? That's not Azure? Is Azure part of Productivity?
I don't know how they can. I don't
If
know.
somebody
how
out there knows, let us know. Is that
this one's a little odd. I'm not sure how they're breaking it out. I can't quite.
intelligent cloud? I would think that would be like the cognitive stuff, right?
I would think so, but it could as well just be maybe the infrastructure stuff too.
Well, let me put it like this, and maybe we'll finish up with Amazon, because Amazon has a quarterly number for Azure broken out by itself. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that number it's like around 13 or 14 billion for the last quarter for AWS. So Azure would be close to that, wouldn't it?
Well, see, here's the one thing with Azure. This is annual that I know of, and this is something Bob Evans reported on a few weeks ago. Azure, AWS plus Google's revenue combined is less than Azure's revenue alone. So that doesn't jive exactly with that.
Right.
And not only that, I don't think Azure's number works out to 60 billion over a year either.
No, it's a trailing 12 months of over 50. It's like 51, 52 or something like that. 52 billion just for Azure, trailing 12 months. Matter of fact, let's keep talking. I'll bring up Amazon, because theirs is broken out and you can specifically see AWS. So let me do that while we're talking here.
I did get permission while we're doing that. I'll break in, and I got permission from Esteban on the Hot Wings answer. Okay, so of course, if you all remembered while Brent's looking this up, we asked Esteban, we asked if Esteban liked or ate hot wings. So I sent him a text saying, "Hey, you eat hot wings?" And he goes, this is his response: "Is Jesus Jewish?" Of course. Of course, is my middle name. Rumor has it that the translation from Hebrew for Daniel is hot wings.
Wait a minute, you're making news right there. Esteban's middle name is Daniel?
No, I think he must mean Dan Trantner.
Oh, all right. So in other words, the answer to that is yes, he does eat hot wings.
Yes, he eats hot wings. He definitely eats hot wings.
Hey, Ratul is the one that brought it up. Let's maybe we can see Esteban crashing apart. But I don't think we should just keep it to Esteban. Sven I think this will be a good initiation for Sven to start off his SAP career in the CDP Hot Wings contest. So ooh. I'm just saying, I think it's.
Sven, did you eat hot wings?
I think he needs to start. I think you're
required to eat hot wings within the first month that you're at SAP.
So Thomas says his boss, meaning his wife, says Azure is not part of productivity. So that must mean, let me go back to.
But that wasn't productivity. That just said intelligent cloud.
Well, there was business and productivity and intelligent cloud. They were separate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's separate. let
me do this. Let me see if I can bring that up. All right, so this is what Microsoft has, their classifications. So they're saying there is productivity in business. So Thomas is saying it's not that. So then it has to be intelligent cloud, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think. But
there's more to intelligent cloud than just Azure, I would think.
That's right? What I'm guessing. I'm guessing that Azure, IaaS services are tied to part of it, but not all of it.
All right. So keep that in mind. So we'll say that Azure is included. It can't be the total for intelligent cloud, but that's 15.1 for Microsoft Intelligent Cloud. So let me take this away, and then I'll bring up AWS and see what we get with that. Here we are. So AWS is at 13.5, and that's just AWS. 13.5 the last quarter. And that was up 32%. Remember, people were starting to see the growth rate for AWS started decelerating and then bam, not anymore. It's up 35% year over year at 13.5. So just AWS alone is on a $54 billion run rate for AWS alone.
Okay. I mean,
that's huge.
Well, you know, I think people are pretty much know the world is cloud now. And I mean, think about it. If every single time any vendor talks about what they're doing, they always bring up what percentage of their growth is related to the cloud, right? Like Pega did that in PegaWorld Inspire this week. And, you know, I think Alan even said, you know, Pega Systems Cloud is, you know, blah, 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 has increased by this much, and, you know, so on and so forth. I think all of the vendors, some of them are going all in as, you know, providers like Microsoft and, you know, Amazon and Oracle and Google and so on. And others are just building out their cloud technologies around, you know, with their platform. But I don't think anyone, I mean, it's sort of like, who's not doing that? Really?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you?
But you know what? But you look at what Microsoft has, and let's say, you know, has to be a pretty significant piece of that 15 billion is Azure related. So that's huge.
Bob Evans numbers, right? I mean, the ones he talked about. Azure is Google Cloud plus AWS plus more, right? So that's those. I think the number. I think Google Cloud and AWS combined was something like 36 or 37 billion or something like that, and Azure was 39 billion.
See, that's that doesn't jive with what we just saw from Amazon.
No, well, which is why I'm going to see.
Yeah, I think I'm trusting Amazon's number over that, because, I mean, when you put in your financial earnings report, you can't just throw a number out there and say that has to be backed up. So their run rate is 54 billion. You know, when you're looking at the earnings report, that doesn't jive with what Bob Evans said.
Here's what he has. I found it. Let me. Despite this is Q1 revenue. Okay, here it is. These are the numbers. Google Cloud's Q1 revenue was 4.05 billion. AWS's Q1 revenue was 13.5 billion.
Okay.
The total combined was 17.55 billion. Microsoft's Q1 Azure revenue was 17.7 billion.
So then what we're
slightly up. This is for the fiscal quarter third quarter for Microsoft.
Well, that's what we have here. So let's go back to this. So basically, then what he's saying is Azure revenues are coming in multiple buckets here, because the intelligent cloud, that doesn't add up to 17. It's only 15. So, you know, and why wouldn't Microsoft make that more clear? Because why wouldn't they want people to know that they are making the combined amount of both Google and AWS?
You know, a lot of this is how you interpret cloud.
Well, Thomas is right. It's all a matter of how you aggregate the numbers.
Pretty much the same thing. Right. So Microsoft chooses this. I don't know where Bob got his numbers, but he got it from somewhere.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would bust those out, because that would be huge.
So would I.
Because the perception is still that AWS is you know, the number one, you know, cloud for that. One last graphic here for Amazon. Now, we talked about HubSpot, 1.2 billion run rate annual. Then we talked about ServiceNow. They're about 5.5 billion annual for revenue. All right. This slide is just the quarter earnings, not revenue, earnings. So those other ones were revenue. They're just looking at the last quarter of earnings for Amazon.
Hey. That's up 220%
year over year.
That is ridiculous.
8 billion in one quarter for earnings. And we just talked about how great these other companies are doing. They're great, but the scale, well, Microsoft is not in the equation with HubSpot and ServiceNow. But that's ridiculous. And then I don't have the graphic because they don't do a graphic. They just do a transcript. You know how much Apple made last quarter in terms of earnings?
No.
$23.6 billion in earnings last quarter.
God. You know what? I gave them $2 billion of that.
You know what? I didn't give them $2 billion because I've been waiting to give them $3 billion for when the MX2 chip, or whatever they're going to call it,
M2,
comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
I'm there with you.
I bought a Mac Mini, but I purposely bought a Mac Mini with the M1 chip because that was the cheapest M1 device I could get because I wanted to wait to get the MacBook Pro 16 with the new MX2 or whatever they're going to call it. And that's going to cost me like 2 to 3 times more than what the Mac Mini with the M1 chip was going to buy.
You're not kidding. Right. I know. Well, I haven't been using Mac laptops for probably 5 years. I've been using Dells and for the most part, and the LG 17-incher. And when that M2 comes out, I'm buying one. And the base, from what I can tell, from the pricing I've seen, speculatively, the base for the 16-inch, not anything beyond the fundamental, $23.99.
I just got to tell you, Sven is literally trying to direct our show at this point.
I know. Sven, you're our opener, man.
And I have to put this one up again. Only Alexa would want to read the footnotes and the endnotes of all this.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll give you the report, Alexa, so you can read them.
Take copious notes too, so you can report back on the next stuff. Yeah. Do you want to talk briefly a little bit about the PegaWorld and Microsoft BizApp Summit?
Yeah, because actually there's some interesting pieces. I mean, there's a lot of incompleteness. The thing with Microsoft, for example, on the business application side is it's a small part of their business. And there's a lot of other things that kind of, because of the way Microsoft's organized now around, Azure kind of as a framework and their world dominating, their world dominating technology, the one that they want to be their core. The way they've reorganized Office 365 to move it from productivity to, a unified communications hub, and the way they've tied business apps and, Power BI and Power Apps into that whole system. It's actually, when you having a strictly business apps conference, it's good, but it's not complete. It never gives you a complete story. So you kind of have to pick and choose the elements of it that are of interest to you. And the thing to their credit was, if you actually look at the stuff that they were providing, a lot of it was in, benefits of Dynamics 365, or, there was sort of the sessions where you will learn how to do something. They had a lot of that. But one of the things that stood out to me, aside from the just absolute cinematic quality of the production itself, one of the things that stood out for me was that they have made some real efforts, although still not at the level of, say, a Thunderhead, but they made some real efforts into real-time journey orchestration. And one of the things that they've looked at, which I found kind of interesting, I mean, it follows the path you would expect, right? You're getting data on customers, the customer is moving along their journey, whatever it is, it's being tracked. The data is coming back to you. You're able to respond in that same time frame with something that, that's something that impacts that journey in some way, and so on and so forth. And you continually gathering what you need to sort of optimize the interactions between the customer. And the technology that they've evolved, while kind of version 1 is still heading in that direction. And it has all the things you would expect, the journey builder and things like that, which to me, most of those are just, graphical workflow engines with different elements than the normal marketing ones, let's say, or whatever. And so, but this one, they have one thing which struck me really kind of interesting, only because I've never really seen it offered per se. And that was, they had these, they actually created around the journey orchestration, they created an event catalog, which is, so basically what they did, and to the best that I can understand from what I heard and what I read, was they went out and they kind of looked at all the, they looked at journeys, they looked at actual journeys, and they found out what are the most common elements of these journeys, what are the most common interactions, what are the most common activities at specific touch points, what are the most important ones, meaning there was some judgments made along the way. And they built out event catalogs, which give you these kind of pre-configured, drag and drop ready elements as you're building out the optimal journey that you'd like the customer to be traveling on. Of course, the customer is not going to travel on that journey, but nonetheless, the value of that is that these, unlike a lot of journey builders, which are ordinarily based on just guesses and names of things like email. An email goes out does this and this. This is based on real-time experience of people, right? So the elements in a sense are carved out of real journeys, right? And then optimized and placed in the catalog for reuse. Now again, there's limits to all of that, but it was an interesting approach in that Microsoft is apparently taking this, almost treating it like each aspect of the journey is almost a microservice, as opposed to just, because each of these elements seems to be an activity of some kind, right? So I've never seen quite that approach, and I found it really fascinating. On the whole, the conference was fine, but it's focused and limited to the area that it's in, and that's business applications. And they did the usual, and Alyssa and James did a good job of kind of talking about the customers and laying out the outlooks. But when it comes down to kind of more seminal stuff, you can't really do it in that conference. It's not that conference isn't built to do that. So did they fulfill the purpose of it? Yeah. Is there some interesting things? Yeah, I think the event catalog, I really found to be an interesting way to start thinking a little bit about the journey orchestration, even though it's not necessarily fluid. It's at the same time, it is based on something relatively real. Okay, then the other thing on the Pega side, that was much more substantial because it was the whole company, and Pega, what Pega does, yeah, exactly. It is. Thank you, Thomas. I agree with you. Pega was interesting in this regard, is that Pega shows one thing consistently now, especially in this recent period, which is that it's extremely well aligned with the needs of the market. I mean, just really, really well aligned with it. I mean, so, I was looking at the themes of the conference, right? Really more than the specific things, although there was some interesting specific releases. I'll just generally comment, just in the interest of time, on the platform itself without going into any detail at all. Suffice to say, they added elements to the platform that they needed to add to extend an engagement platform. Okay, but they focused in the area of they understand their own history. So they were looking at as we develop, as work becomes of more and more consistently distributed nature, we want to make sure that, in their words, were Alan's words, I think, were we want to make sure we can crush complexity, right? We want to make sure that we can promote simplification and not turn this into some complex mess, but actually simplify the way people can do work by building in the processes, automating what we have to automate, so that a lot of the work can be taken out of their hands and put in the hands of what he called AI, which was, in his way of putting it, was augmented intelligence, right? Meaning it supported human activity, which is the best way to think about it. And they're not the only ones to say it. And and to that end, of course, it was interesting. They didn't push low code, no code. Take note, Andy. They didn't push low code, no code. They pushed low code only, right? They never said a word about no code, right? But it was the same concept. They didn't use these terms, but citizen applications, citizen apps and development, simplified ways of engaging, and that they said that the apps would be built around that you would build would be built around specific outcomes, and they focused there. They went to a different place when it came to the customer journey. They went to micro journeys, which were really the other end of microservices, right? Basically, a microservice says, "Hi, I want to make a hotel reservation." A micro journey is customers making a hotel reservation, right? So it's literally, that's the difference, and I'm not kidding. One gives you the ability to do it, and the other one is you doing it, right? But they were very emphatic on microservices, micro journeys, as being the way that they're approaching things. And it's interesting that dovetails with the corporate philosophy, which is, think globally, support locally in everything. That even goes to the way they deal with their philanthropy. So I thought, how would I put this? I thought that there's some things they could have done more, without a doubt. But on the whole, they hit the right notes in most everything, not just in the messaging, but in the narrative, in the thinking, and in the line of activity that has led to the kind of improvements in implementation. I mean, what do you think about all that?
I'm going to be very brief because we're already kind of long with this. But on the Microsoft side, first of all, the production value is awesome. It looked like we were watching MSNBC all over, like the early days of MSNBC, because I've actually been in the original MSNBC studio on Microsoft's campus. It was a full-fledged. I mean, they actually the original MSNBC broadcaster from there, and I actually recorded a couple of video things for Microsoft, like way back in the day, and it was there. It looked like that was being used again, like a full-fledged broadcast studio look and feel. The quality was great. The way that they kind of put it together, it felt like a broadcast. Some of the demonstrations were good, but they weren't as crisp. Let's put it like this. PegaWorld, their whole thing was done in a 2.5-hour block.
Yep.
The keynote from Alan was all of 12 minutes max.
Yeah.
It was exactly. It was quick. It was crisp. It looked good. It sounded good. It got right to the point. There was no messing around. And then they kept quickly moving to the next thing and to the next thing, and it was all done very purposely. It was done with some nice comedic transitions with Don. I mean, Don was great stitching it all together. But then even their Innovation Hub talks were really good. They had the guy Justin that kind of stitched that portion all together, and each of the components. The one with Karim did, the one that they did with I forget the people's names, but they were really good and great components all to themselves, but then very well stitched together and kept it moving. And then they did the 5 tech trends at the end, and then they did a concert, and It was done. All of it was done so very well thought out and orchestrated and put together. The messages all matched. They were reinforced with each additional component to the show, and there was some humor, and it was just very well done. Go ahead.
And the one other level, the interactivity was enormous.
The interactivity there was a component of interactivity, which they're the ones that so far that have gotten that right. Right. Adobe's, there was no interaction basically. None. But that was the keynote portion. The sneaks portion for what Adobe did was great. That with Dan Levy and the way he interacted with each of the 7 applications that people could vote on, they did an awesome job of that. We really wish that they had included some of the elements of that into the actual keynote, because that would have made the keynote even more effective. So Pega was, I thought they've done probably the best job so far of incorporating the elements that make a virtual event, that can make a virtual event really that much better from watching it in your office compared to being in a theater with 10,000 other people. They got it.
I agree with you. The thing with Microsoft and the interactivity, it was, hi, so-and-so from Buenos Aires. Hi, from Delhi. Hi. It was literally, that's all. And, the moderators were just traffic cops. It was very poor. The interaction was zero. The thing with Pega 2, by the way, the band, for those of you who don't know, was Walk Off the Earth, which is literally was the band that during COVID that I found and I'd not known about, that has become one of my favorite bands of pretty much period. I mean, and the raves that the Pega audience was giving this band were off the charts. But keep in mind, that's literally the period on the conference, right? Was the period. There was a little bit of closing afterwards, but it was nothing.
They had a blooper. Remember, they had a blooper reel at the end.
Blooper reel.
So they incorporated elements into this thing that are TV show kind of elements, which means they get it. They understand that you have to entertain people as well as inform them, and you got to keep their attention. It means you got to keep things crisp, keep them moving, keep it, add some kind of a comedic element, add some entertainment. They had all of those mixed in. And then let me say this about Hayden. Hayden was just being hired around last year's PegaWorld. I think he made a quick kind of a cameo. This year, he was incredibly integrated into it, handing off, setting up the case studies or the customer stories and handing them off. But the other thing that Hayden has kind of brought to Pega, and maybe we'll do these quick clips and then we'll get out of here, is because this was a big part of what Microsoft is doing. Integrating the partner channel into the story, the overall story and the ecosystem. Microsoft, of course, that's what they do. And I think that's one of the things that, we'll just let Hayden tell you in his own words. We talked to Hayden 6 months into his gig, and this is what he had to say about Pega's partner involvement.
Partner company, really. This company is all about partners go deliver. The concept of building on the platform, integrating into the platform from an ISV standpoint, and SIs building IP on the platform, that doesn't exist. And you wouldn't believe, on this call, we published this town hall 2 weeks ago. We had 1,900 partners sign up for it in 2 weeks. Wow. And we had close to 1,000 attend today. They're hungry for the vision. Now what we have to do is turn that on. From a co-development standpoint, a co-sell standpoint, and a delivery standpoint. That's my plan. That's the number one growth lever for us, and I'm going to turn that on. That's a big force multiplier for us that hasn't been tapped yet.
Well, so that's your biggest.
All right. So that was what he said 6 months ago. This is what he said leading up to PegaWorld. I just wanted to I asked him, so how has this partner initiative, how has it progressed now that you're 6 months into it? Here's what he said. This is part of the PegaWorld story too.
Really a force multiplier for us.
It's so evident in terms of their build revenue against our license revenue. I mean, it's a huge multiple. Partners can make a great ton of money by working with Pega, but more specifically, they can do so much value for our customers if we work together as opposed to work separately to work together. That element of our strategy is starting to fire. We had our first ever partner sales kickoff. So we had our sales kickoff in early January. The following week, we did a partner sales kickoff. Never did that before. Very similar content, very similar messaging. And next year, we will move to an integrated sales and partner kickoff during the same week. For me, our partners are really an extension of our own company.
I'll just leave it at that. So you not only have the platform, now you have the ecosystem in the platform, integrating partners into the platform as well as into the just the ecosystem, so to speak. So you see that message coming through. You see the message around empathy coming through, and it's empathy not only from customer vendor, but it's also from vendor to partner. And I think that showed through it. And I think that's like a overarching theme that you pick up with all these big guys. They are not only stitching their platforms together, whether it's buy versus build, but it's being integrating more closely with their partners, and not just on the technical aspects. It's on the business development aspects, and really just on the relationship, helping to build an even better relationship with the customers. That came through in a lot of ways too.
Yep, ecosystems and platforms, they've got it. They do.
All right, man. That was an old fashioned. We hadn't done one of those in a while.
I know. Now we'll have to make this a lost episode.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed it because you'll never see it again. No.
That's right. It's not going to be anywhere to be found, except we'll make a NFT out of it.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh well, I'm guessing this is Alexa. Great progress has always been driven by dedicated adversaries, partnerships. Wow. She always has very intriguing things to say.
Yes, she does.
All right, so
we're gonna figure that one out.
So just a reminder: Hot Wings, Ratul, Dan, and here is another reply from Esteban. I think I got this one right. I think he's throwing down the gauntlet. But he's actually trying to make it sound like it's too beneath him. But something tells me eating wings is definitely not beneath Esteban.
Oh, I'm guessing he's getting involved. Let's just say that.
You know what? I don't want it just to be Esteban. Hey, Christy. By the way, your husband is really nice. We enjoyed having him on the happy hour.
Great.
Yesterday.
Make sure he comes back.
Yeah. Say nice things to him about us. So yeah, Sven, I'm telling you right now, Sven. I'm going to look at the camera and tell you right now, Sven. If you're not a part of this next week, I'm going to be very disappointed. So I'm going to say.
Sven, I have nothing. I'm not involved in it, but I'd be listening. Let's just say that.
Christy, we're glad that you like them too. Right? It means a lot to us. All right,
we're hoping that it lasts another 200 years,
or at least till next week, so we can see.
Yeah. That's right. So we can come back on. All right.
So you want to pitch who our guest is next week?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to say it. We got Jujar Singh, guys. He runs product for industries at Salesforce. He's EVP, longtime friend of me, Brent, the show. A lot of you know who he is already. Been around the industry, has run a lot of things. He is a great guest, a great guy, and we're going to dig deep into Salesforce industries, products, and what the hell's going on the whole, around industries in the industry. And I'll leave it at that.
It's a lot of industry talk.
That's the only word I know.
All right, folks. Well, thank you for joining us for this week. We look forward to seeing you next week. Maybe we'll see you on the happy hour. You know, we've had a lot of great discussions of late. Camels came up. Somehow MacArthur came up.
Camels, chocolate babka.
Babkas. The other thing came up were torpedoes or something like that. Didn't a torpedo or something came up?
Submarines,
a torpedo. Somebody is very excited to be talking about velocity. Is that Alexa again?
No, we're talking about industries at Salesforce, not velocity particularly.
Well, you know.
Just telling you. Be clear.
But I like the woo part. Velocity woo.
Velocity woo.
That actually sounds like somebody's name. Hi, what's your name? Velocity woo.
Velocity. Oh, that's not, no. You know, that's like a movie martial arts expert. What's your name? She's like an Avenger type. What's your name? Velocity Woo.
That's a good Avenger name, actually.
That is Velocity Woo is a fantastic Avenger name. All right,
and there's the
superhero.
All right, so thank you on behalf of Velocity Woo. I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM Players, and we will see you next week. Oh,
you know how to close it. Of course.
Yeah, here we are, folks. There it is.
That gets me every time.